Good afternoon, and today it gives me great pleasure to be able to talk to our Best of Breed judge at Crufts 2020, Mrs. Sally Pointon. Good afternoon, Sally.
Good afternoon, Terry.
Could I ask you, what was the first time you started showing dogs?
The first time was when I lived in South Africa. I was only 18 and I was working with somebody who she bought an old English sheepdog puppy and it didn't have any hair. And she said, "Oh no, I'm going to." Well, it wasn't hairy.
Yeah,
And she said, "I'm going to show this puppy." And I said, "Oh, show." I didn't really know about shows. I'd always loved dogs, but I didn't really know about shows. So actually, Ray and I, my husband Ray and I, went to dog shows before we got a dog.
I see.
So we went to dog shows for about 8 months, and I was 18, which was quite a long time ago, 1973, 74.
Just so people might ask, how long were you in South Africa for?
18 years.
18 years. And
Yeah.
how old were you? Only 18 when you went there?
I was 17 when I went.
Oh, a big move.
Well, yes, but I was always gung-ho. I've always been gung-ho, Terry. I went out with a suitcase and 90 pounds, and I didn't know anybody.
Amazing, Sally.
I know.
Amazing.
Well, that's just me. That's just me. I was very, very gung-ho. I'm very simmered down now compared to what I used to be.
You've matured with age.
Well, I don't know about that.
Right, let's get back to
Slowed
that.
down a bit, yes.
Yeah, and we all. Tell me about it.
Yes.
Did you not own dogs? Did you not have a dog when you were a child at all?
No, we only had one dog for a short while. I always loved dogs, always from when I can remember. And I used to walk to the station and catch the train to school. And every day when I came home, I used to go in the pet shop every day and look at the dogs. And because then you could, that's where you bought dogs, from pet shops in those days. So no, I had one dog. We had a cat who I found run over, and I was allowed a hamster. That was all.
Sally, that's so bizarre. When I was
bizarre.
at school, I used to come home every day and go into the local pet shop.
Yes, I did it every day.
Yeah, every day. My parents used to think I lived there.
Yeah, I did it every day. Yes.
So when did you become involved with showing dogs then?
Well, shortly after going to South Africa, I met Ray on a blind date, and it wasn't that long before we lived together. And then, as I say, I worked with a girl who bought herself an old English sheepdog puppy, and that's how it all started, really. And the first dog we got was a fully grown male who wasn't getting on with another one, so we could only have one dog where we were living, and we had him, and I started showing him. And
what breed was that?
Sheepdog.
Sorry?
An old English sheepdog.
Oh.
Yes. So.
And did you do well with him?
Well, he won 1 CC and 14 reserve CC.
Good grief.
I used to stand second with him. Dino was his name. And everybody I beat, he beat, but he always used to stand second, except for the once when he won a ticket. So that was my first dog, yes, our first dog.
So how did you get into Apsos?
Oh, that was about 10 years later. My very good friend Sue McNabb, who still lives in South Africa, she had imported in the 70s a grey and white Viento Apso.
Good grief.
No. And
Rosemary Wallace.
Yes. And she had a litter of puppies, not a Viento. It wasn't a Viento bitch, but she had a litter of puppies, and she also had a litter of border collie puppies. But she wanted to go away for the weekend, so she said, "Would I come and look after them while she went?" Because they were quite young. And I just got completely chosen by this Lhasa Apso, this beautiful golden. He was only small. He was, I think, only a couple of weeks old. And he didn't really have any personality at all. He was just this beautiful gold creature. Yeah. And I said to Ray, I said, "I think I'm going to bring him home." Well, he thought I was bonkers. because we had 4 old English sheepdogs at the time. And I brought him home when he was 10 weeks old. And he just sort of took over straight away.
As they do.
As they do. And actually, but the bizarre thing was, I didn't know how to train a Lhasa Apso. So I treated him like an old English sheepdog. Well, that didn't go down very well at all. I think it took me about 18 months to get him to walk on a lead properly. And I showed him for 5 years and he did terribly well. He was top Lhasa Apso in South Africa in 1990. No, it wouldn't be 1996, would it? 76. I'd have to look it up. But anyway, he did terribly well. He was very slow maturing in his coat and what have you. But in all the years I showed him, he only got his act together either showing, as in walking, or standing on the table. He'd either stand and not walk, or he'd walk and not stand. That was my first episode. And we did bring him and his daughter and his grandson back to England when we returned in 1990 through quarantine.
Did you judge out there at all?
I just started judging. I'd been showing for 15 years and I just started judging a couple of years before we came back. And in those days, even in those days over there, you had to sit an anatomy exam first and you had to attend seminars of assault on certain breeds, and you had to do the whole group, you know, not all at once, but you know, no. I had just started just before I came back in the pastoral group, not the utility group.
So was there a lot of difference between showing in South Africa and showing over here?
Only really numerically. I mean, the good thing about my apprenticeship, if that's what you want to call it, is
I still think that's a very good word.
Well, we'll call it an apprenticeship. You used to sit at the ringside waiting for your breed to come up, so you would see the whole group. Yes. Every time you went to a show, you would see the whole group. So you weren't just you didn't just have tunnel vision about your breed. You sat and you watched all the other breeds. So from that point of view, it was very good actually. Yeah, not really that different, except the numbers. We didn't have the numbers. And I mean, there were very few Lhasa Apsos. So, you know, I did a lot of catching up with the wider Lhasa Apso world when I got back here in 1990. We went to everything. I went to AGMs, shows, seminars, went to absolutely everything.
I do remember you when you first came over, and I do feel that you seem to slot in really well. You fitted in really, really well.
Well, I'd already, you know, I'd been showing and had a few litters and obviously just started judging. I'd been around, you know, dog shows for about 18 years by then. So although people thought I was brand new, I wasn't brand new to showing.
You got the knowledge already.
Well, I had the gist of it all.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. So when did you first start judging in England?
Oh, quite quickly, because I think my first judging appointment was in 1992. And then in 93, I started working at Dog World, and I joined as an assistant editor, not assistant editor, an editorial assistant. And obviously that did help me greatly because I just soaked up everything that went on. You know, I interviewed top winning people in all breeds. I used to be at the shows for 4 days, watching all the top dogs in all the groups. So that helped me greatly. And I don't know where all the judging appointments came from, but for our breed particularly, for Lhasa Apsos, I used to probably, the first 10 years, I'd probably judge 3 or 4 times a year at open shows.
I think watching, as you said earlier on, I think is watching, you learn so much.
You learn so much, and listening to other very successful people. I didn't used to go and approach people. I used to just, through work, I was around a lot of top winning people in loads of different breeds, as well as sitting and watching ringside, you know, when we ever had a show.
Can we
That,
talk? Sorry, Sally.
sorry, I was going to say that for me is the best way to learn, just to be around people that have got a positive and knowledgeable attitude, and that the winning isn't all, it's the
No,
breed.
not
So,
at all.
yeah,
Watching and listening.
exactly.
Watching and listening. I always have said that.
Yeah.
Could we talk about your Crufts experience? I'm sure people would like to hear about this.
Well, what would you like to know, Terry?
How exciting was it?
Oh, it was terribly
Was
exciting.
it?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I can't.
Well,
I can't imagine. It must be amazing when you get that letter that
well,
asks you to judge it.
can I tell you about getting
Yeah,
the
tell
letter?
me everything.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I was probably invited, I think I'd have to look it up, but it was about 3 or 4 years beforehand. And I was actually on the phone to somebody chatting away as you do. I was multi-skilling. I had my computer on and I had the phone in my ear, and then the post came. And it was actually, it must have been towards the end of the year. And you know, you get all this pre-craft stuff, don't you? You get
Oh yes,
adverts
yeah,
and all
yeah.
sorts of things. And I was on the phone to somebody, and this great big envelope came in. It was bright green, and I thought, I actually said to the person I was talking to, "Oh, what sort of, you know,
Yeah,
junk mail have I got now?" Well, I opened it. Well, honestly, Terry, I'm
screamed.
that. Yeah, I did.
Did you scream?
I did.
I
I did.
think I would.
I did. I could not believe it. I was really surprised. So yeah, obviously terrified.
How many times did you have to read it before you believed
Oh,
it?
quite a lot.
Yeah, I'd be exactly the same.
Yes. Oh yeah, I couldn't believe it. And do you know that the in the letter it actually says to you that you've already been passed for it, and would you like to accept? It's not like a normal invitation.
No.
A normal invitation asks you to judge, but then you still have to be approved. But the Crufts one, you've already been approved, and they just ask you if you would like to accept it.
I can't imagine anybody going, no, thank you.
Well, I can't. No, I can't. The sad thing is,
No, yeah, like, no, thank you. I've got another appointment for that day. I've got to wash my hair.
yes. Well,
Yeah.
actually, the problem was, Terry, that I had already got a club show.
Oh,
I know, which I'd already won the ballot for the club show, and they had very kindly moved the club show for me once. I was supposed to judge the club show in 18, and then I got another appointment in 16, and I was a couple of weeks short of the 2 year, in between
yeah.
appointments. And so the club very kindly moved me to 19. Well, of course, I judged Crufts in 20. So I then had to go cap in hand to the club and say, I'm terribly sorry I've been invited to Crufts. So, yeah, so sadly, I've never done a club show at champs level. That was my one and only invitation so far.
Well, there's time yet.
Well, but I couldn't say no to Crufts, could I?
No, you couldn't. So, Sally, tell me on the day that Crow survived.
Well, can I tell you about the days leading up to Crufts first?
You can tell me everything.
Okay. Well, obviously, I tried to not think about it from the time I had the invitation. But obviously, in the few months leading up to the show, you get a little bit excited. But
I think about it all the time.
you try not to think about it, but
Yeah.
you think, oh, I wonder who will come. I wonder what overseas dogs I might have, and all you do think about that.
Yeah. Will
I
it get a good entry?
Well, because I know that I always judge the dogs on the day, regardless. It's the normal thing, isn't it, to think what dogs might I have?
Yeah.
Anyway, my biggest concern, apart from my outfit, of course, my biggest concern leading up to the show was the fact that we were just beginning with the COVID-19 problem.
Yes.
And I really wasn't sure whether or not Crufts, I think it was a close run thing that Crufts went ahead at all. So that sort of overtook a little bit, but I had already decided, because I've reported on Crufts for 30 years and other shows, I'd already decided that I would stay the night before and the night afterwards.
Very sensible.
Home, yes. but obviously it does cost quite a lot of money.
I'm sure.
It does. But anyway, I had decided that. So yes, the great excitement of it, was there when I thought about it. But because I have been judging for a very long time, and because I am very passionate, and I'm, as you know, like yourself, I sit at the ringside a lot and soak it all up all the time. Obviously, I was really excited, but believe it or not, I wasn't nervous at all day, not at all. I mean, my entry was lovely. And considering some of the overseas dogs that had entered couldn't come,
Yes.
they were banned from coming. And I had a really nice spread of numbers over the classes. And the good thing about Crufts was I actually got the numbers of the classes before the show. Normally you don't. You normally just
No.
numbers. So I knew what was going to be in each class. And obviously my mind did wander occasionally to think, oh, I wonder what's going to be in open, and which overseas dogs might come.
I think those, yeah.
But I'm not an internet. I don't normally have time to go on Facebook or look at things or admire. So I would always.
No, I'm the same, Sally.
Yeah, I just thought how exciting, but I was as calm as a cucumber all day, all day. I didn't. Sometimes occasionally when you've got some beautiful dogs, you might think. I've had a few classes over the years where you thought, that one's gorgeous, but it's not moving as nicely as I'd like it, or but I just do what I always try to do. I went in the zone. I had some lovely big classes, but they weren't excessively big, so that I had to, really, really. It was a very manageable but lovely entry.
Lovely.
And I did have some beautiful classes.
And you managed it with ease?
Oh, well, the thing is, when you get to judge at Crufts, obviously I'd already judged our breed 8 times with tickets before, and I do a lot of judging. I judge other breeds with tickets, and I do a lot of open shows. I mean, I think last year I had 14 judging appointments. So I'm not one of those people that just does one breed and I have to get into it. I judge a lot, so I feel really comfortable judging.
I feel myself, once you've done Minor Puppy Dog, you're in it.
To be honest with you, I was in it right from the word go.
You've just gone there, and that's it. You're focused, and you just judge him. All nerves disappear.
I didn't have any nerves in the morning. I didn't have any nerves all day. It was a blissful day. It was just lovely.
It's just a shame it's ones, isn't it?
I know.
I know.
It's come and it's gone.
Do you feel Crufts could improve at all?
Crufts could improve?
Yes.
Well, that's an odd question. I'm
thinking from the spectator's point of view, the judge's point of view.
Well, as a judge, I mean, obviously, you go to the hotel the night before. They take very good care of you because they had a buffet on. I was very.
I need to ask, did you stay at that Royal Plaza?
No, I stayed at the Metropole.
Oh, you stayed at the Metropole.
Yeah.
Very nice. I'm impressed now.
Well, what they do, you have a pre-judging conference where they go through everything so that maybe overseas judges that haven't judged at Crufts before are fully aware of, judging. Judging at Crufts, people say it's just another show. Well, it isn't really, because you've got the whole world looking. And I mean, I would judge the same personally myself. I just go in the ring and judge the dogs, and it doesn't matter to me whether I've done them well before or whether they've done well before or what colour they are, who bred them or who owns them. I just judge the dogs. But I think for a lot of people that don't judge a lot, maybe, they get more nervous but they do help. That pre-judging conference certainly irons out any potential problems that people may or may not encounter. I mean, I didn't realise, but apparently every class that I judged was live streamed all over the world.
It's probably best you didn't know,
Oh, well, it
really.
doesn't worry me, Terry, because I don't take any notice of what's going on around me. I literally do just
Yeah,
focus.
I'm very similar to
Yeah.
that.
So
I
that,
just can't.
that
I
wouldn't have.
just concentrate on the dogs.
Yeah, it didn't. Honestly, I genuinely was not nervous all day. I just felt really comfortable.
So he was well looked after.
Yes, I was very well looked after. I mean, you have to find your way to the halls. You're not escorted or anything, but then there's hundreds of judges, and it's a huge show to manage. And I mean, this year must have been a complete nightmare because trying to get to the point where the show would go. I mean, they mustn't have known really whether the show would go ahead themselves or not.
It must have been a real problem for
It
them.
must have been, yeah.
It's like this next year's Crufts. I just don't know what's going to happen there, but
Well, I just
time will time
I
will
just think
tell.
that they probably have to think about not having qualification or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's we're living in bizarre times.
I can't see there being too many shows really
No,
this year.
no. Do you feel the quality of the dogs? Are the English dogs compared with the European dogs are different?
Quality. I think the quality here is generally very high. I think having been to Westminster in the 1990s and having been to the World Dog Show in Helsinki twice, I've also been to European shows, mostly reporting. But obviously, I get to see the APSO judging and what have you. The style of APSOs in other countries is different to the UK, but we have lots of different styles of APSOs in this country. And I think that's why it's so essential for judges to go through a long process of learning so they can judge all these different styles to the standard because you're going to be presented with, in any class, you're going to be presented with any number of colours, styles of APSO. And you have to get in, for me, I just judge them to the standard. I don't have a preference when I go.
Um,
I don't go looking for. I don't go in my head thinking, "Oh, I hope I get one that looks like this."
yeah,
Um,
you don't go in with a type in your head.
uh, no,
No,
no, not at all. Well, it has to be a Lhasa Apso.
of course.
Well, I've judged a few that might not be.
Well, yes, question mark.
Well, but there you
Yeah.
are. But so
But
that's why,
even that is a learning curve.
of course,
I think they're the best classes. What people learn on the ones when you go and you've got six different types,
yeah.
and you're not, and you do have to really study and think
But
about it.
that is why when I judge, I mean, everyone has their own priorities. I mean, I try and judge them all the same to the standard, but they have to be sound, they have to be typey. It doesn't matter what style, but they have to look like a Lhasa Apso, well balanced, and they have to move well. They have to be well conditioned. There's a whole package to get the top dog.
Is there any fault that you would
I thought you
instantly?
would ask me that. No, actually, there isn't, because I try not to say, I can't, if you showed me the dog, I would tell you what I liked and what I didn't like. Obviously, the degree of that fault would make me sway one way or another as to where that dog might get placed. But people get fixated, especially I think everybody does when they first start judging. They get fixated on, oh, I must have a dog with a good shoulder. I must have a dog. After a while, especially soundness is really, really important to me.
I agree.
And so if you don't have a sound sturdy frame, sturdy, not heavy, sturdy frame, in other words, not flimmy flammy, if you've got a sound sturdy frame that's well balanced and the dog's got a decent head, I mean, out of an entry of about 100, you might only like really like five or six heads. You might only really like five or six heads. But if they fit the standard, it doesn't mean they're wrong.
No, no, no.
I try not to go with any preference at all about colour or style. Well, I just never do. But
You
That
You
comes
just,
with practice and experience.
yes, you just judge the dogs on the day.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, no prejudging.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, because people like to know,
Yes.
your prefix,
Yes.
where did you get that from?
Okay. Well, my affix of Belito is actually my second affix. When I lived in South Africa, I obviously applied for an affix there, and I had to submit 15 names before I got the one, well, the one that I ended up with. It wasn't actually the one I wanted. My original affix I wanted was White Oaks, but I couldn't have that. So after resubmitting 15 times, I was eventually granted Sal Point, which is obviously made up from my name.
Yeah.
And then when I came back from South Africa in 1990, I had had the affix for about 15 or 16 years. So I wanted to continue it. But guess what? I applied for that affix and I couldn't have it.
Somebody
So,
else had got it.
yeah, they must have done. So, Belito is actually a very pretty seaside village on the Natal coastline in South Africa, overlooking the Indian Ocean.
Sounds idyllic.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. Yeah,
So you chose that and you got it.
yeah, I did. Yes, and I love it. I love it better than the original one. Yes.
Do you feel that the breed has changed from how it has been in the years gone by? And in what way do you feel it's changed?
I think, like everything, things evolve and things change and styles change. But actually, I think it can change on an ongoing basis. I mean, I've judged sometimes and been really, really happy and thrilled with the overall entry. And then there has been one or two occasions when maybe the dog entry wasn't so good, but the bitch entry was good. And obviously, we've moved on from when they first, came into the West. But even though we've got so many different styles and colours, I actually think the breed's in a pretty good place at the moment. Actually,
Yeah, I must admit, I do. I think it's in a very good position.
my worry, can I say, my worry,
Say anything.
even though I don't breed a lot, I'm very into pedigrees, and I've helped a lot of people over the years with pedigrees. And I don't really know where this all stemmed from. It must have been just something that I picked up in my learning, with dogs and breeding and what have you, even though I don't breed a great deal. But my worry is that we have a lot of lovely dogs. But for the future, I don't think the pedigrees are line bred sufficiently, or that people understand them. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, maybe I'm wrong. But I think we've got a lot of outcrossy pedigrees. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I've imported 3 dogs. So I'm all for new blood, but you have to understand pedigrees. What you really want to produce in a litter is a litter of puppies that all look similar.
Yes.
You don't want a litter of puppies where you've got 2 big ones and 2 small ones, and some have got round heads and some have got. But you can't breed a litter that all look similar unless you understand a 5-generation or more pedigree and how things go together. That's my worry for the future, is that I'd like to think people will do their homework. I mean, the first thing I bought when I came back to this country was the Champions book. That was the first thing I bought. And I did a lot of research, for my own knowledge. And I could see from the pedigrees of the dogs that were champions who were the dominant sires and what lines seemed to go together. But, generally, I think at the moment the breed is in a pretty good spot, actually.
I think it's in a pretty good spot. I think I agree with you on moving forward.
Yes.
I sometimes look at what people are using and I think, well, where are you going to go with that?
Well, they don't. Yeah, but what worries me is, do they even think about where they're going?
No, I don't think they do. When I have a litter of puppies, and you're probably the same, I think about that litter, but I think about the litter I'm going to get from that litter.
Yeah.
The moving forward.
And
I
some
just
blood,
I look now and think, where are you going to go with that?
yes. Well, some bloodlines definitely mix better than others. And I mean, obviously, occasionally you do have to do an outcross, but you must do it for the right reasons, to the right dog. And, you know, what's the old saying? You can't make a, whatever it is, purse out of a pig's ear.
You can't make a silk
There you are.
purse out of a pig's ear,
Yes.
and you can't polish a turd.
Oh.
Emil cut that.
Well, it always, to me, it always comes down to pedigree. I mean, occasionally you'll get a beautiful specimen from a very, you know, nondescript, shall we say, pedigree, or a very mixed pedigree. Obviously, that will happen occasionally, but it's where you go from that and how it then
Yeah,
goes on. But that's my only concern, really.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's my concern. Sometimes I wonder, but I do think the breed, and probably all breeds, go in like waves like
They
this,
do,
don't
yeah,
they?
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. I think
But
this breed's been,
when I first came back in 1990, I mean, size was a big problem. There,
yes,
there were some really big dogs. And there were a few other issues with the breed. There's always going to be, because it's a balancing act, isn't it? You breed for one thing and then something else pops up that you may not have known about. That's why understanding pedigrees is so important.
it is.
And
It
the
is
thing,
because that you can use a dog that you don't particularly know what's at the back of it because
well,
you like that dog's got one particular thing that you like,
exactly. And the thing is,
and you
I'm
put
very
that
lucky.
in your line,
Yeah,
but you get all other stuff as well that you
yeah.
didn't want.
Well, that's why knowing and understanding your pedigrees is important. But like everything, it takes time. I mean, I'm very lucky. I've judged a lot of dogs in a lot of pedigrees. I've had my hands on them. And in the early days, particularly, but I still do this now, I go and see as many litters that people breed as possible.
I love looking.
I love
I
looking at
love looking at puppies,
their
and
beauty.
people go and think I'm going to look at their little cute little babies. Oh
Yeah.
no, no!
I
I just
love looking,
I go and look at them from totally different points of view
yes,
from everybody
yes.
else. It's just so just, and then I like to see them when they get a bit older and how they've developed and how they've come on and how they've changed.
Well,
It's
Terry,
so
I'm sure
interesting.
you'll agree. I mean, different lines develop in a different way.
Definitely,
And so if you
definitely.
don't understand how that particular line of breeding develops, I know years and years ago that there was a particularly lovely dog that I particularly liked, and somebody used him on a very different line, and they were advised quite rightly by a senior person, but the senior person, I don't think at that time understood how the puppies from that particular dog came on. If you don't understand how they're going to develop, then it really is a bit tricky, you
It
know,
does
and
get
that's how you learn.
complicated. Sometimes I've found with people and the litters, they'll use a particular dog because it's either winning or it's top dog or because it's very glamorous or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And they'll use it on their beach, which is a different line altogether. And you go and look at the puppies, and they've got like two different litters.
Well, I've actually been to see a few litters in the last few years where people have done complete outcrosses to outcrosses to outcrosses. And you know, you'll get two like this, two like that, two like that. There's no consistency. But then
No, but
where do you then go on from there? Because you need to
yeah,
try and twig in with something. And it's no good line breeding to a poor dog.
no.
You should only line breed to an excellent dog.
Yeah, you should only, I've always thought, you should always put, you can line breed, as you say, and I don't think it's a bad thing at all, that you need to put quality to quality.
Oh, you can't do anything else. I mean, I think one of the things the Kennel Club has done for us, which I think is magnificent, is that inbreeding coefficient.
Yes, I
I think
do too.
I think it's fabulous because there's no guesswork in how inbred or not, you know, a particular pedigree is. So no, I think, you know, we've got so many different tools and things that we can look up now. There's no excuse for people to be lazy with it.
No, there's no, it quite takes the guesswork out of it, doesn't it?
It's that. Yes.
Yeah. So as going back to these litters, if they don't know what's behind those
How
different
do you pick
lines,
a puppy?
they've no idea, have they?
No.
What drew you to the breed, the Lhasa Apso breed?
Well, just this one puppy that was sitting in this nest of puppies. Otherwise, I would never have had one.
Had you not watched them at the showings?
No, because I was in the pastoral group at the time and I was showing old English sheepdogs. I didn't think I would ever have a small dog, ever. I'd always, obviously had the old English.
So you did everything you wouldn't tell anybody to do these days then?
Sorry?
Just go. So you did what you wouldn't tell people to do these days?
Well, he picked, what? No, not really, because this dog just attracted me from a very early age. It was just love at first sight, really.
Amazing.
And
look where that's taken you.
Pardon?
And look where that's taken you.
Well, exactly. And actually, it has taken me all over the world.
Yes.
Because
have you judged abroad much?
Bizarrely not. No.
Have you not?
No.
And I would have thought you would have.
No. Well, only in South Africa. Yeah.
There's still time yet.
Well, let's hope so before I'm in my wheelchair. Although I'm really not keen on flying very much.
You're not?
No. But, I have travelled all over the world. I've been to America.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm thinking.
I've been to Helsinki. Obviously, I've travelled up and down to South Africa a lot. But no, I hate flying.
You do it because you have to.
Well, how else would you get there?
You wouldn't, would you?
No.
You wouldn't, would you?
No.
Is there any dogs in the breed over the years that you've admired from the ringside? That one that makes you go, oh my God.
Oh, quite a few. The first dog that completely blew me away was the one that won Best of Breed at Crufts 1991. And he was called, and I wrote it down because I knew I was going to forget. Oh yes, beautiful. I was very excited because I'd never been to Crufts. I'd never been to a UK big show like that because I'd only recently come back from South Africa. And that was an Irish champion, Remark Rebellion at Nishan, handled by the beautiful and glamorous June Frankel in the most beautiful blue outfit. Oh, honestly, absolutely blew me away.
What, the dog or the outfit?
Both. I just thought they looked fabulous.
Fabulous. She used to put them dogs down to perfection.
Yeah.
She used to look perfection herself, and she put the dogs down to perfection. Yeah. She had some beautiful, beautiful dogs.
Absolutely, yeah. So he was the first dog that really stuck in my mind. Another dog that I've been very fortunate to have judged some really, really fabulous dogs. But one that I don't think I have judged him, was the father of my first champion, which was champion Katani Rainmaker. I just thought he was beautiful.
Yeah, she had some lovely dogs, Wendy.
Yes. There's lots and lots of dogs that I've admired, and I have judged a number of them. And obviously some of them, I remember when I judged City of Birmingham in 2010, I think it was my 4th or 5th appointment. And I'd seen this black and white dog at Sealas the year before. And I thought, oh, that looks absolutely fabulous. Anyway, I was hoping it was going to come, and it did. And before I put my hands on it, I thought, oh, please be as nice as you look.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
I know just what you're saying.
Yes, and he was. His head wasn't quite for me, but that didn't matter. He was just the most amazing dog. And he won, I think, about 14 tickets. That was, what was he called? Terendak record signing.
Record signing.
Yeah, he won Best of Breed at Crufts under Joe, I think.
I gave him a ticket as well.
Yes.
The movement on that dog.
Well, he was a package, wasn't he? He was, and he had ring presence.
Oh, stunning.
And he was just fabulous.
Absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
I remember when I did an interview once, somebody asked me which was my all-time favourite dog, and I said record signing. It just captivated you from the moment you walked in.
He really excited me, and that day he won the group, and he went on and won Reserve Best in Show under Ken Sinclair, so that was very exciting. exciting. But I have judged some very beautiful, beautiful dogs.
Yes, what a great loss to the breed Elsa is. She
Yeah,
turns some beautiful dogs out.
yeah, she did.
Beautiful
She had
dogs out.
the thing is, she had a passion for dogs.
Oh, she loved them. You have to. You have to have a passion.
Well, you can't be successful unless you have a passion.
No,
Well,
you
because
can't just go and win.
no,
You've got to absorb it totally.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Have you bred and owned many champions in the breed?
I haven't bred that many litters compared to many because mostly I've been either working full time or committed in other ways to the breed. But I have owned 11 stud book winners, and I've had 3 UK champions. One of which was my lovely Simon that I imported from Australia.
Beautiful dog.
Yeah, he was a beautiful dog who I lost last year. Before my first champion was champion Chitang Imogen at the
Yes.
toe, and she was so funny because Jackie had just the 2 bitches in the litter. We were quite friendly at the time, and we got on really well. And when I saw her at 5 months, I think it was, she had no hair. She looked a little bit ugly. And I said to Jackie, why on earth are you running that one on? Because the sister was gorgeous. She had all this beautiful, glamorous coat. And I said, why on earth are you running both of these on? And she was people shy. She was a typical Apso. Oh, I don't know you. I was.
Yeah.
And then she went round the garden. I said, I said, that looks rather nice on you. Anyway, Jackie very kindly, a little while later, said to me, you can have either one of these bitches. Which one would you like? I said, I'll have the ugly one, please. And she had no hair, really. And then all of a sudden, her hair just grew, and she had the most magnificent coat. She had the most magnificent carriage and ring presence, but she only really loved me, you know. So she,
one person's dog.
yeah, but she was so sound with so many beautiful attributes, you know. And I was showing her at the time Tradition was young and being shown. So yeah, very exciting times. And then Simon obviously came in and did well straight away. He won.
Oh, he came in and just
He did.
Flew, didn't he?
He won the reserve ticket when he was 13 months old at a club show under Bob Gay. And there were 152 entries, I think, that day. And he won junior. I was thrilled to win the junior class. And there was it was about 12 in the class. And then I went on and won the reserve ticket. It still gives me goosebumps now because he was so young. I'd only had him for 2 weeks. But he'd done well in Australia before he came. And Yuha, the Shishwa man, had already given him a best, they call it best specialty in show, just before he came to the UK. And yeah, he didn't win every time, but he was such an easy dog. He was so beautiful. He showed so well. You know, you couldn't have a better dog, really.
I think half the battle is if you've got a dog that shows for you.
Oh, yes.
That look at me, look at me. It's lovely.
He was so easy. He just knew it was his job to be a show dog. So he was fabulous. And then I very fortunately got a daughter that someone else had shown who couldn't keep. And I'd liked her really very much as a puppy. And I was offered her, and she became a champion. I showed her, I think I only started showing her when she was about 2. And then she did okay. And then all of a sudden she won her first ticket. And within 6 weeks, I'd made her up.
Amazing.
You know, but again, she had a lot of his attributes. She had the most beautiful rib cage, beautiful balance. She looked really long, but it was all in her rib cage. And her carriage and her movement and ring presence and coat. You know, she had many lovely things.
And to make a dog up so quickly in them days, if you remember the amount of entries we used to get at the shows.
Well, when Simon came in, I mean, the entries were really big. He won the reserve ticket at Crufts under Keith Nathan. He'd got second in Open, and I think there were 27 dogs in Open, I think. So.
Yeah, because the shows themselves had changed tremendously. entries-wise, don't you think?
So, yeah, but the thing is, I don't mind in a way that the entries are a bit less because, as I say, my entry at Crufts 140. It was a very manageable entry, but a very lovely entry.
Yes.
I don't feel I'm missed out by not having 200 dogs.
Oh, I don't think. I think the entry 140 these days is amazing.
Well, it was a quality entry, really.
Yeah,
You know, most classes. Yeah.
it's what you want, isn't it? The quality. Judging and future judges. What advice do you feel you could give them? Or do you think we help as a breed enough to develop the future judges?
Well, I think that future judges have more help now than they've ever had. And
That is true.
no, they have had more help and they've had more opportunity to learn than we ever did. I've got mixed feelings about because I was one of the first people that came through when it all started to be a little bit more structured. Um, you had to go and pass an assessment and all of this. But in days of yore, before I even arrived in the country, people didn't really get asked to judge, did they, until they showed good dogs consistently.
Yes.
And if they weren't,
You had to do your apprenticeship.
Yes.
That word again.
Even if you did get asked to judge and you weren't any good, I don't think you got asked again.
No. You were judged. You weren't. You were judged, and if you didn't make a good job out of it, you'd never get asked again.
But not everybody is suited to be a judge, I don't feel, because you do have to constantly absorb the information about your breed, and you know, there's such a it's not easy because you do have to be so confident by the time you give tickets. You do have to be confident to blank everything else out and just concentrate on the task at hand. But I think that I've been very heavily involved in the education of our breed because obviously as breed council secretary, I've been to every assessment in one way or another. Firstly, as a candidate, I've handled, I've helped organise, I've helped run, etc., etc. Compared to some breeds, I think our breed is very open to helping. I'm just not sure that people always know where to go or how to go about it. And also, I do feel people think they want to start far too early. I don't think currently that is the case, but I think it has been the case probably 10 years ago. People were clambering to start judging as soon as they had a dog that could win a class or something. But really, you're just not confident enough. You're not knowledgeable enough. I mean, I remember when I lived in South Africa, the first 10 years that I showed, I'm absolutely sure I couldn't have been a judge because I was still learning about how to be a good exhibitor and to present my dog. And do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
I just feel that people need to be patient. And as we said earlier in the interview, the way to learn is to be around successful people. I remember when I first came back and Jean Blythe used to sit quietly at the ringside. My first time I ever judged here was a C-less match. I had about 25 dogs, if I remember rightly. And I had Anne Matthews and I had Jean Blythe and a few other senior people. I was really new to the country and I was absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
But once I started judging, and it was on a match, it was easier because I only had to start different. It really gave me confidence. But you don't start off as a super confident judge, because it is scary because you have to suddenly make decisions about these lovely dogs that people, or not so lovely dogs, whatever. You have to judge them all and you have to make decisions. I think the most difficult thing is, I think there's plenty of opportunity for people to learn. I think the most difficult thing that people need to learn is judgment. You can't teach anybody to have judgment. You know, people sit at the ringside and they see a lovely dog with a beautiful coat that swishes round, but that's not the same. I think I put it in my Crufts critique. You really cannot judge this breed from the ringside, and just soaking up everything that goes on around you helps you eventually to become a good breeder and a good judge. That's what I
Yes, and talking to people and listening.
Yes, no, more listening than
Listening.
talking. I would never have dreamt of going to talk to Jean Blythe when I first was here.
Oh, I wouldn't.
Ne-
Mrs. Blythe.
Well, I wouldn't even have said Mrs. Blythe, but she did very kindly, because when Tradition was being, actually no, I went there before Tradition. She very kindly invited me to go to her house. I don't know how it came about. I must have just been in the right place at the right time. I've been very fortunate over the years, but I've also made a big effort
Yes.
to educate myself. And you need a bit of luck. You need to be in the right place at the right time, and you need to meet the right people. But I went, she invited me. I showed a bit of interest, I think, in Frederico, because he was a very good sire. And she said, if you like, you can come and you can go over all of my dogs. And that was the first time I went there. But I mean, I was, like a fish out of water. I felt so honoured to go. And then Dorothy Kendall, the All Lanes,
Lady.
very world famous All Lanes lady, she came over and we had a puppy party. I'm sure you were there, and there's been some pictures, I think, on Facebook.
Yes.
But it was a fabulous day because, I was still, even though I'd been in dogs for 20 years, I felt really, amongst a lot of more senior, more knowledgeable people. And that's how you learn. You don't learn you can't rush it. It's like everything,
No.
you just can't
No.
rush it.
No, I find it amazing that I find it amazing. I've been in the breed 49 years. I don't look old enough. Uh, that's where you say no. That's where you say of course
Tony,
not.
you're not Tony, you're Terry.
Thank you. But yeah, in 49 years, and I'm still learning.
Well,
I'm still learning.
I think it is Terry. I would say that you actually learn to look at things differently.
That is so true.
Because when I first started showing, I couldn't understand. We had my very good friend Susan. She imported a dog from the UK, and he was a very glamorous dog. But I didn't understand the dog at all. But he did all this winning, and I didn't understand why he did all this winning, because he wasn't my cup of tea, if you want to call it, or my understanding of a good old sheepdog.
I know exactly what you mean.
But so you do learn all the time. But I think once you get to a certain level, you do actually just look at things differently, and you appreciate things you wouldn't have done when you first started.
Yes, that's the thing that I think I've learned. At one bit, I would have dismissed things that I didn't.
Oh yes, when you first start judging,
Yeah.
you think, oh, I couldn't possibly have that.
No.
And people I've noticed, because I help quite a lot of people, they show me their puppy pictures or they ask me this and that, which I'm very happy to do. But people get fixated on they have to have a perfect mouth and they have to have a perfect lay of shoulder and they have to. Well, nobody's perfect.
Nothing.
Not even.
I've never owned a dog that is perfect.
Well, there's always something that you would tweak. And I try to say to people in their breeding programs or what they'll show or what, you have to decide what you will accept or not.
Yes.
But you can't do that. It's like a catch-22. You can't do, it's a chicken and egg thing. You can't, until you've soaked up enough information, you can't do that because you don't.
No.
And
No.
people always assume, I think, that the top winning dogs are perfect, but they're not.
No, not at all. One thing I think I've learned, and I've found myself saying it sometimes when I'm judging, I can understand why people would like that type or people would like that. Things that at one bit I didn't think I would have liked, I can now understand why people would and why people would find that attractive.
Well, somebody that I work with at Dog World, who's now no longer with us, sadly, a very lovely Tibetan Spaniel lady, she said a few things just in conversation to me that I've remembered for all these years. And one of the things was, you usually like what you're used to.
Yeah, that's so right.
In other words, the dogs that you have at home. And somebody else in the breed who's very, very senior, and it's such a true saying, you can own and breed the style of Apsos that you like, but when you judge, you have to appreciate them all.
All, yeah. So just going back to what you said there, I remember somebody saying to me once, be careful what you keep,
Yes.
because if you keep poor quality, your eye will go to poor quality.
Oh dear.
Just keep quality stuff around
Well,
you.
I don't know about you, Terry. There's been a few what I would call light bulb moments in my progression through dogs.
Oh, I've had many.
Yeah, but no, but it is almost like a light bulb moment. I remember when I came back to this country with 3 dogs, and it soon became I was already quite experienced in dogs, but I came back and I thought, what I've got won't do, I thought to myself. And I got a very nice little grey bitch from June Smith, and then she produced my first Crufts qualifier. In those days, you had to win the class to qualify. You couldn't get second or third.
Yeah.
So, of course, that was very exciting. But then when I got friendly, I used Nathan.
He was a nice dog.
Nathan. And I got friendly with Jackie. And then when I had my first champion bitch, when I brought her home, even though she was an ugly duckling, that was a big, major light bulb moment. Because I put her in my garden and I could see how she was going to be. It's like when Ray went down to Heathrow. I mean, he was 2 days getting here. I'd seen videos of him and I knew he was a lovely dog. But when he brought him home, even though he was full of oil and his face was dirty and he looked a bit goggly-eyed because he was so tired, my mouth just dropped open. But
is that when he was
a dog like that, you don't understand.
No, you don't understand.
I don't think you do.
It's like puppies. I have a lot of light bulb moments with puppies. I can keep a little and run them on. And then what I like to do, I've done with you the same, I like to have them outside and I can sit and watch them for an hour or so running round. And all of a sudden, one of them will just stop naturally in that perfect position. And I'll go, that'll do me. That'll do me.
Well, as I say, I don't have a great deal of litters, certainly not in more recent years, but I like to see them when they're wet.
Oh, I do.
I like to see them on even weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And it's a whole complex thing to pick a puppy. But obviously, when you've been in a breed for 30, 40, 50 years, you don't want just an ordinary one. Because on a champion certificate, it says, is this dog of excellent quality? And if it is of excellent, but obviously it's a journey to get to that point. And some people...
Such a journey, and it's full of disappointment.
Oh, absolutely full
of
disappointment.
If people think they're going to breed the first litter and end up with a champion...
Well, you might be lucky.
You might be lucky.
You might be lucky. You might end up with you might start with a good one and have a fabulous first litter. Yeah. But also, what was I going to say? There's so many disappointments. Anybody that's successful has had a bucket load of disappointments. I've had beautiful ones that won't show.
Yeah, me too.
Outbreed is not easy because of that inbred, wariness or, aloofness. They're just awkward. They can be really awkward. So when
I think it's a difficult breed.
Oh, it is.
To get them on the move. Sometimes they will move because they want to. I've had dogs and made dogs up, and I put them in the ring, and I thought, and every day I'll be going, oh God, make a walk. But
when you get one that is a proper show dog and a beautiful dog and everything else, that's when it all falls into place. But some people's light bulb moments comes early on, and some people might have to wait a long time. Some people never get a light bulb moment.
No, I don't think some people do.
No.
I don't think some people do. Some people, I'm not generalizing here. I think some people are very interested and will be an asset to the breed, and they come and ask all the right questions, and I think that's what we need more.
Well, I think what showing dogs now for people, I think, is different to what it used to be, and their aspirations are different. But you have to have an absolute passion for it. A passion.
Like we have.
Yes. like we
yeah,
still have,
like
even with all
yeah.
the ups and downs.
This is me, 49 years, showing. You know, the morning I'm going to a dog show, I still get excited.
Yes,
I still get excited.
yes.
If I'm going with Mandy and Eamon, I'll message them and go, "Are you excited?" Mandy goes, "Yes."
Well,
Eamon goes,
if you don't
Eamon
enjoy
goes,
it,
"No, I'm not excited."
if you don't enjoy it, there's no point.
No,
There's no
no,
point. No.
no. And it's not the winning, because the winning's good.
No,
Don't get
the
me wrong.
winning comes in good time if you have a good enough dog and you know how to present it and it's in good condition and you have the right judge. But it's just being around
Oh,
all these beautiful dogs, and you know, if it doesn't excite you or you know fill you with joy, then there's no point to it.
it's like this. I don't know whether anybody can understand. You probably will do. And I don't get, this is a thing I don't get much these days. I can be sat around a ring and somebody will bring a dog in that I've not seen before, and it takes my breath away. It literally
It
takes
doesn't
my
happen
breath away.
often, but when it
It
does,
doesn't.
I
It
know.
doesn't.
Well, my best of breed at Crufts literally took my breath away. It gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
You know, yes, she's a young bitch and what have you, and blah, 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 but she took my breath away.
And it's wonderful.
It was,
Wonderful.
yeah.
One more thing before we moving on. Oh my God, this is going so well, Sally. This is a question, Sally, that I had put to Pauline the other day as well.
Yes,
And you've been heavily involved with the PRA.
yes.
Are you pleased how it's all gone?
Well, obviously it took a while getting there, didn't it? But I think
It was a slow start.
well, yes, but I think as I think Pauline said, you know, it's like everything. In hindsight, you look back and you think, oh, why did it take so long? But it took so long because we didn't actually have any means to go forward. And
No.
all that money that was raised and all the money that was spent and all the research, I mean, what a wonderful thing.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's a shame that at the moment we don't know what's happening with the Animal Health Trust or what have you, but it has transformed. I mean, that is a big major thing to consider because obviously you wouldn't go and use a male with PRA or a carrier, would you? Unless you had,
I personally wouldn't.
I personally wouldn't, but it is a personal choice. But
Yeah.
I would use a carrier dog if it was of superb quality with a superb pedigree that went with my bitch and my bitch was clear. But in an ideal world, obviously, in an ideal world, you wouldn't really, unless it was something that you had your mindset on. Bitch wise, I think, you know, if you've got a carrier bitch, it enables you then to go and find a clear dog, you know. But the problem with our breed, I can't really talk for other breeds, it is all about the pedigree.
I'm sure other breeds have their own problems.
But the thing is, the more you know there is to worry about.
Yes.
That's the problem. When you're new, you just say, oh, that's a nice dog, and that's a nice dog. Oh, boom. But when you want to
ignorance is bliss.
Absolutely. If you want you want to have a better mouth or a better eye or better pigment or a better lay of shoulder, don't just go for a dog that's got those because it has to be a dog that goes with your bitch pedigree wise as well. Yeah. But then you might think, well, okay, it's got that, but it's got all these other things I don't want. So the more you know, the harder it is. It sounds bizarre, but the harder it is to choose the right dog.
Yeah, because you sometimes can end up overthinking it.
Well, I think you need to, it depends again what you're prepared to take a chance on.
True.
For instance, I wouldn't want to use a dog, you know, that wasn't going to give me the things I needed and then had other problems. What would be the point?
There'd be no point. No point whatsoever.
No.
I always think, as I said earlier on, I always look when I do a mating, not for just that mating, but moving forward.
Yes.
Because I don't have dozens of dogs. I like to think, and what am I going to do with it? Anything that I keep out of that litter, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
I like to, it's the longevity of it I like to think about. And it is such a slow developing breed.
Yeah, but we are only the custodians of this breed.
Definitely.
What we do as breeders and judges will set the foundations for the next generation. You know.
And I think we've done very well this generation.
Well, I think we had a few wobbles. As I said to you, there's been a few times where I thought, what? And I think the biggest problem at the moment is that people really need to study their pedigrees and make sure they understand what it is they're doing. I mean, maybe there are people doing that, so I don't wish to be rude, but it isn't all about, oh, well, I really like the look of that dog, or I'd like to hope that we are going to get some breeders that are going to really immerse themselves in, the passion of breeding. And it is a juggling act. It's always a juggling act.
And as I said, and it's so full of disappointments.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it's so full of highs as well.
Yeah, well, it can be if you have a lovely one.
If you bet, when you breed your own first champion that's out of your breeding.
But when you've had a gorgeous, beautiful dog, you can never replace them, and you may never have another one, but you want to try and have another one. Another beautiful dog. You don't want mediocre.
No,
I'm afraid.
you don't. Your eye can't live with mediocre.
They're not all going to be superstars, but there has to be a standard, doesn't there, when you've been doing it a while.
Well, I think also, as I said earlier, when you only keep small numbers.
Yeah, which
over the years, 2 or 3 has been a lot of number. Like now, 49 years down the line, and I own one dog.
Well, I only show one dog at a time. And I mean, there have been years where I haven't shown any dogs because I haven't got.
So when you've only got the small numbers, you've got to make sure what you keep is quality.
And if there isn't one, then you don't keep anything.
Oh, no. Yes. I mean, not no, yes. Yeah, you've got to be prepared.
No, yes.
Yeah, no, yes. Yes, you've got to be prepared sometimes to let everything go.
Absolutely. But you
not every litter has got champions.
No. But people, even in a fabulous litter, and I've seen some fabulous litters, very rarely are more than 1 or 2 going to make it to any degree of success. No. Because it's such a package.
Yeah, it's all there. Well, I think we've come to the end of our conversation today, Sally. And may I say, what a pleasure it's been talking to you.
Oh, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that us done now?
Is it us done? Is that a wrap?
Is that a wrap?